in the early 2000s also are corporate criminals that have used the Republican Party to raid the federal treasury, and they're doing everything they can to stall the economy, cause the president to have massive layoffs with budget cuts, cutting out jobs where we have teachers and firemen laid off. They're doing this to make the country miserable so they can get back in with their corporate, big, well-to-do oil companies and big wigs and go about like they had done before in the past 25 years, dismantling and deregulating laws where they can get back to raiding the federal treasury and at the expense of the taxpayers to pay off the bankruptcy that they cause companies and corporates and investments to go into a big economic slide and where they use the small town Republicans that vote for them and believe in them, they use their ignorance and bigotry to try to stall and blindside them what they have done in the past 15 years.
Lynn Jenkins.
Well, I can tell, was it Jay and I are just going to disagree. You're looking at a small town Kansas girl, and I don't think that we're ignorant or bigoted. I think that she has a sense that the president has proposed numerous things to Congress, and we have read them outright, when in fact, if he produces a bill, this will be the first time he's actually put his ideas on paper. In fact, the Congressional Budget Office earlier this year in frustration said, we can't score a speech, Mr. President. And so this really would be the first time there we would have an opportunity to address an issue that the president brought to us. She mentioned the S&L crisis and the scandals. And, unfortunately, in last Congress, the Dodd-Frank bill was signed into law, which did nothing to address the real issue at hand, which was Freddie and Fannie. And in fact, it has created quite a burden for our small town Main Street financial institutions that didn't create the problem, but are being punished. And a lot of them are just being forced out of business. And so, I would just wholeheartedly disagree, I think, with that caller.
Lynn Jenkins, what's the economy like in Kansas's 2nd District?
Well, in Kansas, we, I believe, are insulated a bit from the highs and the lows, and so our unemployment isn't nearly what it is at the national level. But folks in Kansas are hurting, I will tell you that. We have ag producers that are tough old birds, and they are holding their own. Ag prices are good, so that's a positive, but we also are home to a lot of aircraft manufacturers, and that's a tough business right now. And so we too are just looking to Washington, not to create jobs, but to create the right environment so that the private sector can create the jobs and we can grow our way out of this mess.
Next call comes from Athens, Georgia. Eva, hi.
Good morning. I am an independent, and I was a Republican most of my life until about 15 years ago. And I just have a couple of different things I'd like to. I am tired, and so are many, many of my friends and relatives tired of hearing about all anti-awful, when in fact 10% means 90% of our people are employed. And I'm not just a half full, I'm a 90% full type person. So I'd like to focus instead on what is right in our economy. I have yet to see any football stadium empty anywhere, not even a big section of it. None of it is empty. I look around at the professional games. None of theirs is empty. The skyboxes are full. Where's this money coming from? And if that is a good economy, and to me that is like a red flag. And when I see a nice big sector of those stadiums empty, I'll believe we're in trouble.
Lynn Jenkins.
Well, I think Eva has a point there. I think the American people have set their priorities as they do, and I think that's why the personal debt of individuals is probably at an all-time high, because like many folks across the nation, Washington's no different, we've been living beyond our means. And so, I think she's got a point. We just continue to live high on the hog, and it's time Washington balanced its budget, eliminated its debt, and started living within its means, much like many families across America are going to have to make those tough decisions and maybe forego some of those sporting events to do the very same thing.
Here are some facts and figures from the U.S. Department of Labor regarding the U.S. employment situation. 14 million Americans are unemployed. 139 million have jobs. 6 million of the unemployed have been out of work for more than 6 months. 8 million people are working part-time. 1.1 million have stopped looking for work. 8% is the unemployment rate for women, 9% for men, 16% for African Americans, and 14.6% of Americans ages 20 to 24 are jobless. The president also called for summer jobs program. What do you think of that?
Well, I think the key is not to throw money at a problem. The key is to solve the problem. And the problem is right now businesses cannot afford to hire additional employees because of the barriers to job creation. They're not competitive internationally on their income taxes. They are certainly being killed by regulators. And I understand common sense regulation is necessary. But I hear from businesses day in and day out that many of these regulators, whether it's the OCC, the SEC, the EPA, USDA, HUD, they're just off the chain. They are too aggressive, and they are putting people out of businesses. And, then folks are concerned about litigation, and so you can't pay higher taxes and hire additional employees. If you're a small business on Main Street, you're going to do one of the two, not both. And in this environment of uncertainty, I think employers are just paralyzed. They're not willing to hire someone with the anticipation that the president's health care proposal will actually come in full implementation in a few years. That will cost them. There's always a threat from the administration that they're going to raise their taxes. So they're just sitting, waiting for some certainty as it relates to their health care cost and their income tax, their regulation costs. And once we can give them that certainty and make some reforms that are more business friendly, I think we will see the whole issue of unemployment for teens and women and everybody resolved.
Clinton, Kentucky. Go ahead, Nathan, Republican line.
How are you doing today? I just have a couple of comments about another stimulus plan. We've already bailed out the banks a couple of times. We bailed out the auto industry a couple of times. I have a novel idea. Why don't we bail out the small citizen? Anybody making less than $500,000 a year, say. We could divide $450 billion into 450,000 millionaires. You spread that out, it's about 1 millionaires per state, 1,000 millionaire per state. That, I couldn't think of anything else that would do the stimulation that we need in this country, like spreading that money across the United States. All those people would be buying new cars. They'd be buying all the other stuff that they've never been able to afford. It would stimulate our economy faster than anything else.
Lynn Jenkins.
Well, I'm never opposed to taxpayers keeping more of their hard-earned money, but to bail anyone out at this point is not really feasible. The federal government is broke. We have spent, about $1.5 trillion every year for the last 3 years, more than we took in. We've got a $14.5 trillion national debt. And the fact is, some of the last stimulus money was thrown at folks, and probably they did the right thing. They paid off their debt, or they put it in the bank so they could save it. That did nothing to stimulate the economy. So I'm not eager to sign up for more debt, more